What's up, guys? Chris here to do my UFC 151 Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson predictions. Wait a minute, that's not right. Um, I probably would have been doing my predictions, but no. As I'm sure you all know by now, that fight is off. Dan Henderson, I believe the diagnosis was strained MCL or torn, something like that. It's not. Dana White said it's not so serious and he needs to get surgery, but obviously he couldn't take the fight against Jon Jones next Saturday. It was originally scheduled to be UFC 151. Which was bad news. But then he said on this conference call that Chael Sonnen had accepted to take the fight on just a little over a week's notice, which is a pretty ballsy thing to do for Chael. But unfortunately, Jon Jones declined that fight for whatever reasons. Dana said that Jones talked to Jackson and Greg Jackson, and the team, I guess, decided it wasn't a good fight for Jon Jones to take for whatever the reasons. I'm sure those reasons will come out, but it doesn't matter. Dana White, and it seems like a lot of the feedback I'm reading online, a lot of people aren't going to accept Jones' decision and disagree with it. You know what I mean? You can understand their point. Chael was willing to accept the fight on just over a week's notice where he definitely wasn't going to come in 100%, had little time to prepare or train for it. And Jones, although it'd be a new opponent, he would be close to 100% ready for the fight because he was scheduled to fight that day anyway. So you could see why Dana, in particular, I guess, and people that don't like Jones were annoyed by this, as well as Chael Sonnen. As for Jones' decision, I understand the issues with it. I think that, for what I just said, I don't see why he wouldn't accept that fight. That said, I'm not really all that upset because outside of Henderson versus Jones, that UFC 151 card, I really didn't have any interest in it. No disrespect to the fighters. I really had no interest in it. I mean, granted, I feel bad that all the guys that were supposed to fight on that card, outside of Jones, are out of a fight basically and aren't going to. I don't know if they're going to get paid or not. We haven't heard anything yet, but they all trained for this fight, took time away from their family, friends, whatever, spent a lot of time training for this event, and none of them are going to be competing on that date. And they may or may not get paid. We shall see. But so I feel bad for those guys. But that said, I still wasn't looking forward to that card. And now Jones is going to be fighting Machida at the rescheduled UFC 151. Was going to be UFC 152, now UFC 151. What's the date on that? September 21st, I believe, something like that. September 21st, 22nd. It's going to be the new headliner rematch against Lyoto Machida, and Demetrius Johnson versus Joseph Benavidez will be slotted to the co-main event. That card wasn't all that appealing either. I mean, it was interesting, but it wasn't the most intriguing card. But now it looks a lot better with two title fights at the top. So that card got a lot stronger. We lost one card, but outside of Henderson Jones, you really only lost one fight. I would have rather seen Henderson Jones than Machida Jones too, but we were likely going to get that fight regardless. Given the fact that I think that Jones was going to beat Henderson. And I do think eventually Jon Jones will fight, if he beats Machida as I expect, in the rematch, will eventually fight both Dan Henderson and Chael Sonnen. So, if we ultimately get all three of those fights, in the long term, it's not really that big of a deal. It's more of a short-term thing. People are angry at Jones for not accepting the Sonnen fight, but, it is what it is. He's the one that has to go and step in the octagon, or not step in this instance, so it's hard for me to fault the guy or really take, any issues with it personally myself. That said, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you think about Jones' decision not to accept the fight against Sonnen? What do you think about Sonnen's decision to be willing to take up that fight? I'll give Sonnen credit for this. He is far from infallible, but mad respect to any guy that is willing to fight the top two fighters in his sport back to back in Anderson Silva and Jon Jones. Major credit to Chael for being willing to do that. What do you think about the fact that Jones Machida is the new main event at UFC 151 in Canada? Are you looking more forward to that card now? I would imagine you must be. And, just overall thoughts in general. There's a lot of stuff going around with this. Do you agree with Dana White that Greg Jackson's killing the sport, fucking killing the sport, as he said? I think he puts a little too much stock into what Greg Jackson says or does. I don't really understand the whole issue with Dana White and Greg Jackson. I think it's more of a one-sided thing, but I don't know. What's your thoughts on the whole fiasco in general? Jones, Sonnen, Machida, card being canceled. Do you agree with Dana White? Whatever. I'm sure you have thoughts on it. Let me know what they are. Like I said, hopefully it'll be all's well that ends well. But, you know, the way this year's been going for the UFC with all the canceled fights and injured fighters, no big shock or surprise to me. That's it for now. She'll be talking about this in more in depth on this coming weekend Science of Science radio show. Links to that, scienceofscience.com, Science of Science on Facebook, and my Twitter. All the information part of it, as always. Till next time, though, I'm out.